If your screenplay is stuck in development hell, then this video is for you. If you don't know who I am, my name's Alexi Uzas. I'm a feature film producer and owner of Exile Entertainment, a production company based in Australia. I've produced 8 features on my own, and I've EP'd another 4, and my 9th feature film is one that I'm working on at the moment. It's a film called True Nature. It's a crime thriller, and it was stuck in development hell, and it almost completely derailed the project to the point that we actually were not going to continue with the project. And so what I want to do in this video is actually take you through not only how that happened, but how I managed to get the project out of that development hell, and how you can also do the same, right? So how you can apply these same steps to get the film just out of that development hell, because it's the worst place for your project to be, right? If your film is stuck and it's not even getting to the point where you can start financing it, and you're just development, and you feel like you're going around in circles, you really want to watch this video, because I reckon I can get you out of it if you just follow the steps that I've taken to get out of it. So let's go through it. Firstly, what is development hell? Let's make sure that you're actually in development hell and not in some other place that you think you are. Because a lot of people say oh, my film's in development hell, but then you dig a bit further and they're not actually in development hell. They're in something completely else. So if you're in development hell, it means that you haven't even started raising finance on the film. So if you're raising finance on your film in any way, you're out of development. You're now trying to finance the film. So let's just make sure that that's clear. If you're trying to finance and you can't raise money, you're not in development hell, you're in financing hell. And that's a totally different topic for another video. Development hell is when you haven't even managed to start pitching the film to anyone because you can't get the script to a point where you're comfortable, you're satisfied enough with the quality of the script that you're then prepared to go and pitch it to other people. So that's really what it is. It's where your script is stalled, and maybe you keep doing drafts and it's nothing's working. You're not really sure where to go next on it. Maybe because of that, this happens a lot. You drop that script and you start working on something else. That happens so many times with filmmakers who I speak with. It's just they can't get a script to work. So rather than identify what's wrong with it and try and break it out of development hell, they'll just pick up another project. And so if you're guilty of that, if you've got all these different scripts that you're kind of working on, but none of them have got to the point where you're starting to raise finance, it's probably time to take a look at what you're actually doing in the development process, because likely you're doing something wrong there. So how did we find ourselves in development hell? Well, the interesting thing about development hell is it takes a while for you to actually identify that you're there, right? Because you're developing a film, you're getting feedback, you're, kind of iterating on it, trying to improve it. It goes out, you get feedback, you do another draft. It goes out, you get feedback, you do another draft. It took us 9 months to realize that we had basically stalled on the project. So there was 9 months of development. Granted, maybe the first 3 months were quite productive, but I'd say there was a 6-month period where actually we were just stuck and we didn't realize we were stuck. And so what happened is that, in my view, there was just too many opinions, too many rounds of feedback, the feedback was from too many different people. And so what happened was that then all these different notes came in, and it was difficult for the writer-director in particular. So I'm producing, there's a writer-director attached, and there's a co-writer, and there was another producer attached as well, right? But not only that, we're then getting feedback from other people. So it's not only the 4 of us who are giving feedback, but now we're getting feedback from other people. And there was just too many conflicting views on what the film should be, right? Now, the problem with that is that if you're not sure what type of film that you're making and you're getting notes on the script, then it becomes very hard to decide which notes you should take on. And so I think what happened was just too many different opinions came into this, and the writer-director then was unable to really clearly articulate what type of film he was making or wanting to make, and to make the decisions about, okay, what are the right notes to take on. So the big lesson for us, and for me in particular, was just you can't have too many people involved in that process. And if you're going to get feedback, you need to be like dead sure that the key writer or the director or the producer, whoever's really driving the creative vision of the film, has a kind of ironclad understanding of what the film is about, what they're trying to do with the film, what the major themes are, those sorts of things, what they're trying to say. Because otherwise, it's too easy to kind of get almost swayed by different opinions, and you can kind of like go in different directions a little bit too much. So that's how we got there. It was just too many. And what happened with our core team of 4 is that even within that, there were different ideas about what the film should be. And so then it was really hard to for the film to progress. And what ended up happening actually is we got to the point where we thought that the film couldn't, we basically thought that the script wasn't good enough. We'd sent it out. We tried to get some development funding. We didn't get that. Tried to get an actor attached. We didn't get them attached. And so we felt like, you know what? Maybe it's just the story. Like, the story's just not good enough. It was never not good enough to begin with. The premise just wasn't strong enough. And now we've done all this development, but actually we've just realized that the film's, this story just doesn't cut it. Actually, but that wasn't the case, right? What had actually happened is the script had just steered too far from what its initial idea was, that it was almost unrecognizable. And so that takes me to my next point. So if you're at that point where you're just thinking about dropping a project, right? Thinking about stopping, developing a particular script, definitely take a moment to say, to just think, okay, is it because, this film's doesn't, there's no place for it in the market? Or have you just steered too far from the original idea? Have you kind of let too many opinions come in, and is it not the film that you originally wanted to make? So once I realized we were in development hell, which is basically you're just burnt out. You're burnt out from the project. You can't see a way forward. You're not sure what to do with it next. If any of those symptoms are true, it's likely because you're in this point. So how do you get out? What I did is, the first thing that we did was obviously take a step back from the project. So we kind of just stopped developing it. And at that point, we thought we actually weren't even going to go ahead, but I felt like there was still something there in that original idea that got me excited about the project that at least deserved the next step. So what I did is I went back to the original drafts. I went back to the original pitch that the director had sent me. I went back to the original outline. I went back to the original development notes that he'd created about, what were the themes of the film? What story was he trying to make? And so I just went back and really tried to understand, okay, what was the initial idea for this film? What was its core? What got us excited about it, right? Why did we want to actually make this film? And then, fortunately, I had just pitched the film to I'd pitched the film. Actually, let me come back to this. So it was back to the initial idea first, and going through first drafts, second drafts. You got to do a bit of work, right? You got to go back and start reading through all those drafts and start looking at, okay, what were the strengths and what were the weaknesses, and what do we like about particular drafts and not like particular drafts? And so then it was just a lot of back and forth between me and the director. So at this point, really had to kind of just bring it back to me and him, right? So we had to get rid of too many other opinions, too many outside voices, and just come back to the core team of me and him and say, okay, what film do we want to make? That was a funny hand gesture. What do we want to make as a film? And which bits of this development process have been through do we actually like? Because there were elements that had come through during that development process that we thought were really strong. Once the director knew all those things, right? Once we'd had all those conversations, then it was about, okay, now we've got to totally break out of this. You and I are on the same page about what we want to do, what this film should be, what the story is, what the premise is, what the theme is, who the characters are, all those sorts of things. We're on the same page. How do we get out from here? The first thing is, there has to be a new draft from that place. So it is taking the best of the old and the new and creating a whole new draft. Next thing, like I said, is you do have to kind of reduce the team down. So if you've got all these, lots of different producers and EPs and writers and co-writers, it becomes very hard to make any decisions. So you've got to cut that back to the core team, ideally probably just 1 or 2 people. Now, if you're making a film, it's very easy. If you're making TV, it's probably a bit harder to do that. But I'd still encourage you to just, what is the minimal viable team that you can work with in order to get through this. Once you've done that and you've got your new draft, there might be a bit of, like one more round of back and forth between the producer and the director. But really at that point, like that should be the draft. Like you've gone through all the drafts, you've gone through this development process. This draft is the best of the old and the new. So you should be at the end now. And all that you need to do from that point is do a walkthrough, do a script walkthrough from start to finish. Maybe at that point you want to bring in one more person. That's what we did. We brought the co-writer back in and we just went line by line through the script together, made any final changes that we needed to make, right? Have any other big kind of conversations that we needed to make, and then lock the script. And so that process of realizing that we were in development hell to then finalizing the script and pitching it was probably only like 4 to 6 weeks, right? And so we were able to get out of development hell very quickly. And then we were fortunate, coming back to what I said earlier, to have a market that was coming up. So I was able to, me and the director were able to take that new version of the script, create a log line, create a pitch for it, take it out to distributors and sales agents, see if it was actually landing with them, which it was, which gave us confidence like, okay, this new version of it is working, it's landing with people. And so we finished that market and then started sending it out. And so we started sending it out probably like 10 days ago. And we'll start getting feedback from distributors, from sales agents in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, once we do, I'll update you about, how those discussions are going. But it's been a really important lesson for me, just in terms of, if your script gets stuck, you've really got to have a look at how you got there. Getting out of there might not be as hard as you think, and it should actually be short. It should be a very fast period to get out. If you can't get out after that point, maybe then you've got to shelve the project. But I think it's probably worthy of that, like one last push and going back to its core, going back to its essence, and then just cracking it out of development hell, pitching it out. And then you can then you get a better idea of, okay, is there a place for this in the market? Is the script actually any good? Because then you're getting feedback from distributors, sales agents. And my view on that is like, that's when the rubber really hits the road. You can get feedback from script consultants, from other producers, from EPs, like all that sort of stuff. But really, when you get the real feedback, it's when you're going out to the marketplace and you're pitching your film and you're trying to get people to invest in the project. That's when you really understand what you've got in terms of a screenplay, and that's really where you understand the strengths and weaknesses of your project. So if you're spending all this time in development hell and you're not even getting to the pitching stage, you're doing yourself a real disservice because you're never really testing your film. You're never really getting that litmus test of whether the project's actually any good. So that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you want to have a conversation with me about working together, follow the link in the description below. All right, that's it for this one. I'll see you on the next one.